All right, welcome back to the Godfrey Universe podcast. Today it is Dan Evans, co-creator of the Godfrey Universe, with Hans here, or Lore Master Hans. Josh is out of town this week, so it'll be me and Hans.
Hello, how are you all?
And had an array of comic book topics to go over. The first one you brought up was from a couple of weeks ago, and that was the storyline of Punisher. Punisher No More, right?
Yeah, I just, I just hate the way that the industry is is doing these these guys.
These
I mean, these are
guys.
like, yeah, I mean these comic book heroes are lifelong guys that we've known. I mean, I'm not calling Punisher a hero per se, so you know, for those listening, they're gonna jump in and say, "Well, he's not really." But I mean, these are characters that's been established for a long time, and then you're just flipping them on their head when you could just create somebody new.
Well,
And
let's do some background real quick for anybody who doesn't know. It's the
yeah,
storyline is called Punisher No More. It came from right after they rebooted Punisher as like he was like a guy that worked for the Hand, which is Daredevil's villains, and they changed his logo from the skull to like the weird demon skull thing, and he didn't use guns anymore.
yeah, it wasn't
Okay,
good.
yeah, and the whole series was like a deconstruction of it, wasn't it?
It
But
was. It kind of went backwards on him, and it just it took away his. It's 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 hard to say. I mean, it's easy to say soul. It kind of took away his soul. I mean, I know he's a fictional character, but it took away the purpose of the character, the essence of the character. Frank Castle's not joining the Hand. Frank Castle is figuring out a way to shoot them. They're going to bring ninja knives to a gunfight. I mean, that's Frank Castle.
yeah, he
Um,
wouldn't work with people like the Hand. I mean, I don't know if he's ever. I
no,
doubt he's ever worked with them in the past ever. So, and like,
and
they're villains. Yeah,
right, and he shows extreme measures to villains. I mean, that's the whole purpose of his character. His character is um, a character that lashes out against the bad guys in a very deadly way. So much so that even Captain America rejects him.
yeah,
You um, this is um, this is not him joining the Hand. So they already reconstructed him. They deconstructed, reconstructed. Now they're deconstructing him. So what this Punisher No More series is it's a way for Marvel, who's I'll just go right ahead and said it, gone woke. I mean, that's basically what it is. And what they've done is they've said, well, we don't want to encourage kids to use guns because gun violence is so high in the U.S. right now. Well, that's true. Gun violence is high in the U.S. right now, but I'm pretty sure Frank Castle Punisher comics aren't the purpose of that, especially when you deconstructed him into a blade wielding ninja as opposed to a guy who uses guns anyway. But they're saying, well, he's putting on this air of violence and
they didn't like that cops used his logo.
and they don't like that cops and rednecks use his logo. Yeah,
Yeah, which
they
I
don't
mean,
like that,
but
and a lot of white supremacists use it too. But
yeah,
whatever, that's
and
neither here
and
nor there
and
when
all
it comes to the
three and
character.
all three of those groups are completely unrelated.
Yeah, they really are. And here's the thing that happened with Punisher. Um, how they're setting it up is Punisher is chained, is captured by Doctor Strange, and he's like in this wherever Doctor Strange puts him, void, dungeon, room, I don't know, whatever, wherever he puts him, stashes them, and he has important people in his life come through, and these people try to tell him he doesn't have to be so vengeful, he doesn't have to kill anymore. Like this he can let everything go, and every single person he resists. He's like, all right, until finally the person that gets him to crack is the ghost of his dead wife. And the ghost of his dead wife convinces him that he no longer has to fight anymore, that she never wanted him to go on this crazy vengeance spree, and that she's done, or that he should be done, that she's passed on, and just for him to let it go. and then it transitions him to putting down his weapons, well, him breaking down and sobbing, and oh, and then him finding a new life, finding a new
Yeah, he
way,
like
a new
doesn't
path
he like transports himself to another dimension or something like that.
to another dimension. He
Yeah,
puts down all weapons and swears never to commit violence again, and he walks off into the sunset. And it is the
yeah, that's
stupidest way to
pathetically
go out.
lame. Yeah,
Yeah,
and of
yeah,
course they would use like the wife. Of course they would do it like an emasculation of him.
yeah.
They couldn't. Yeah, it couldn't just be.
He
They
couldn't
could,
just die in combat.
yeah, they
Like he
couldn't do it
couldn't.
like that.
He. I would love for him to have gone, instead of fighting with the hand, it being an entire series. If you're really going to get rid of the character, have an entire series where him in the hand is really him infiltrating it, and then he actually, uh, but he still gets to keep the guns and all that. I mean, you can't
Yeah,
take that away from
if
him.
you
That's
were
that's
gonna
his signature.
if you were really gonna retire the Punisher, which they'll still take money from his royalties.
Yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
but
Of course.
if you were gonna really retire the Punisher, what we should do is have him like know he's dying or something, and like let's say cancer. Why not cancer? And he decides he's gonna end as many villains as possible, particularly the villains that the people he disagrees with fight, like for Daredevil, like the Hand,
Yeah.
and he ends up destroying, like just massacring so much of them in like a blaze of glory, and in his way of saying that he's better than Daredevil, like really have him commit to how his wrong way of thinking. Like that's how you do that.
Right. I
Yeah,
was even thinking, nobody knows who the true leader of the hand is because it's always shifting.
yeah,
So
yeah. This
I
time it
would
was
even
like a demon called like the Beast or something like that.
right, and what I would have him even do is I would have loved it if they had him infiltrate, and instead of putting down guns when he infiltrates, that he can infiltrate, get that demon logo that he had, and if you remember Ghost Dog, how
Mm-hmm.
the guy used his guns as a samurai sword,
Yeah,
he would do it. He would do it in a similar fashion. He would have like two pistols or
yeah,
whatever he needs to have, and it would be like a dedicated, like an oath weapon,
yeah,
but it would still be a firearm. And he, him, and the leader of the hand would kill each other. They would go out
yeah.
destroying each other in a blaze
Yeah,
of
they
glory, and that
couldn't
would be
they
the end of
couldn't
that.
they couldn't kill him in a masculine way.
No, they
Well,
can't have him
yeah,
be cool.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is like the statement is true that the Punisher, you shouldn't try to emulate the Punisher. That's the whole thing. Like he knows what he's doing is morally wrong and he doesn't care, but he would not want police officers emulating him. Like that's a fair
No,
statement.
no,
He wouldn't want anybody emulating him. Like that's the whole thing.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
mean, he hates his life.
yeah, that's the whole thing. He's miserable, and I
Uh,
might as well kill as many people as I can that are bad while I'm miserable. Um, and that's it's a tragedy. That's the whole thing. And he even knows he's not good enough to fight Captain America like they did in Civil War. Like Captain America hit him, and he was mad that the Punisher wouldn't fight back, and he's like, I'm not you. I'm not gonna fight you. Like,
yeah,
like you're everything I wish I could have been. That's the whole thing.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, but going with that, it's just another long line. I mean, they did the same thing to Captain America when they made him the Hell Hydra thing. It's
yeah,
like yeah,
yeah.
this. I think a lot
That's
of
lame.
well, I know that guy hated Captain America. The guy who wrote that is the same one. I think that they were going to get to write the alternate Superman movie that James Gunn didn't end up doing.
Yeah,
The one with supposed to be with J.J. Abrams. Like that guy just sucks. Um, yeah, I don't know why it seems these people think it's cool to deconstruct these. Well, I already answered this because they hate these characters.
yeah. And
Yeah.
why deconstruct anything? Why not just build a new character?
Yeah, well they don't even know how because like when Frank Miller deconstructed Batman, it was to build him back up, and
Yeah,
whenever um, Alan Moore kind of did it with Watchmen, it worked because he made it work because they wouldn't let him use pre-established characters, so he made his own and
right.
then deconstructed
Like
them.
Night Owl was Batman,
No, yeah, I think he was
or Rorschach
somebody.
maybe.
No, Rorschach was the question.
Oh yeah,
I think Night Owl was. somebody because they wouldn't. He didn't want to do Batman with somebody else, but it's very
Well,
close. It's very
I
close
was
to
thinking in
Batman.
ways.
Yeah.
I was thinking ways of that they were drawn or whatever that they
Yeah, I
took
think yeah,
characters that they took from.
I think he did take from him, but I think he was supposed to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and Doctor Manhattan was the Atom and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, you can do a deconstruction well as long as you build them back up. That's the whole point. It's a new birth, but that's not what they're doing with the Punisher, literally. So
They are butchering him,
yeah,
and I don't. I mean, I know these people don't like these characters, but you don't have to. You don't have to completely destroy something from the ground up just because you don't like or agree with the character.
yeah.
Just give the character their proper ending, fit to the narrative, and then just create somebody new so you don't have to write with that person anymore. Now
Well,
you have
and it's
your
like, and if
own
people are
brand new
using
guy that you can do whatever you want
well,
with,
and
you know?
you can't control, and this seems to be what they do. It's like and the guy who made a Pepe the Frog, the green meme
Yeah,
frog,
yeah,
he killed that off as if that was going to stop people using it, and then now they kill all the Punishers.
yeah,
That's like that doesn't you can't help who likes your product. People are so many artists. And it's because so many YouTubers cave to this pressure. It's like, oh, your audience, and it's like these people aren't your audience. They might like one or two things. It's like you don't think that there's horrible people that like Prince, like
yeah.
one of the greatest artists to ever live. Like there's terrible people who liked what was it well he was a bad person anyway, so I won't give that example. I was gonna say Wagner, like the Nazis loved Wagner, but Wagner was kind of a dick anyway.
It was.
But
Well,
they also loved a bunch of other like German composers who weren't like Wagner.
right.
You can't help who likes your art.
Yeah, you can't. And it's interesting because the character is neither here nor there.
Yeah.
It's and that castle's got nothing to do with a bunch of hillbilly racist rednecks who flashes skull around.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with that. So why are you going to pin that on him? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, because he uses guns and has an excruciating amount of violence. Like, you know, my favorite time to read Wolverine. I'm not a big Wolverine fan.
Yeah.
My favorite time to read Wolverine is when he's the most vicious,
Yeah, like
when he's eviscerating
When
people.
Frank Miller wrote him and he was killing
Right,
like ninjas and stuff in Japan.
right, and he's just absolutely, you know, being Wolverine, being a Wolverine.
Yeah, not a pretty
Yeah,
boy.
right. But it's funny that you mentioned the deconstructing and reconstructing because uh, John Bernthal just got greenlit, or John Bernthal got greenlit to reprise Punisher
Mm-hmm.
season 3 for Netflix
Great Punisher, by the way.
for for the Defender series. And so I guess they're going to jumpstart that back up now that Disney has control of that. But they said that they're going to keep it R-rated. We've already seen the Daredevil. He was he in the Spider-Man Daredevil? He was
Yeah, yeah.
the most recent Spider-Man. Yeah,
Matthew, I forgot his name actually. Something Cox.
uh, yeah, that might be it actually. I think you just
I don't
nailed
know
it.
if it's Matthew Cox. I forgot his name, but
Um,
anyway, yeah, he's great.
but yeah, Charlie Cox.
Charlie
That's
Cox.
it.
I said
Yeah,
Matt is Daredevil's real name. That's why I got confused.
right. So Charlie Cox is already going to be there. The only people who got left out were Jessica Jones, which I thought she was a great character.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Cage, which he was a great actor for
Yeah,
that. I love him in the series Evil right now.
yeah, he's a great
And
actor, and like the cinematography of that show was great. Like
oh yeah,
the lighting as well.
yep. And people gave Iron Fist a bad rap, and I didn't think it was as bad as people gave it.
I didn't really
Um,
care for it, but it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't to me. It wasn't good.
I mean, the MCU has produced a lot worse
Yeah,
shows.
yeah. I think they
I
should have
mean,
gone with Moon Knight then instead of Iron Fist. I think if you
okay,
were gonna do Moon Knight, you should have done Moon Knight there.
they were pushing Heroes for Hire, is what it
Yeah.
was. But anyway, I thought you know, and now that they're bringing back Punisher to reprise that role, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But and Charlie Cox to bring back Daredevil, that's cool. But I'm apprehensive I feel like John Bernthal is dedicated enough to his character that he's not going to sign on to something that's going to emasculate Punisher
Yeah, I'd
because
hope so.
I've seen, well, I've seen interviews with him, and he's not that kind of guy. At least he doesn't seem that way in interviews. He
Yeah.
seems like he's true to his characters, and honestly, he reminds me a lot on professional wrestlers because all the characters that he portrays are like him ramped up to 11, which is
Mm-hmm.
what you want as an actor. So it's like the real him, but him maxed out.
Yeah.
So, and I mean that's all professional wrestling is you yourself, and you just put yourself on an 11 and create a character.
Well, and
So
I the only reason I'm apprehensive about it is because it's Disney. And I was thinking this today because we were talking about it briefly. Like I'm gonna go see the new Kraven movie, and
right,
people rip Sony and like, yeah, like, Sony movies aren't great, but at least you know what you're getting. I think to me it's like whenever it says Sony, it's saying this isn't Marvel, so we can kind of do
it's kind of a
different
sigh of
things.
relief.
Yeah, well, no, what also means it's like it doesn't have its name on it, so you can kind of pretend it's not the same character. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I mean, I know what Craven's gonna be. It's gonna be like a B minus movie, um, that gets memed on hard because that's what Morbius was, and I loved Morbius.
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's
Venom too. Venom
yeah.
got ragged on hard, and I thought Venom was really good.
I mean, but I'll watch it because I'm like, it feels like because it's Sony, it's like it's like one of those things that like shouldn't exist. but
Yeah.
but at the same time, all they have to do to like redeem all of this is first of all, I'll go into Craven in just a second, but if they just brought Wesley Snipes back in as Blade
Oh
and put
man,
all these movies together, people would be like, "Oh man, this is the best thing ever."
dude, Blade was an amazing character. I
Blade's
didn't
still
care
one of
for
the best comic book movies ever made.
I never cared for number three, and I still don't. I did a
Hmm.
recent rewatch of the trilogy when it was on one of the streaming sites or whatever. They had them all back to back. I forget which one it
I
was.
think it was HBO.
And yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
And I did a rewatch of them, and I was like, oh man, number one's awesome. Number two rocks. I thought number two for a sequel,
Hmm.
especially a comic book sequel,
Yeah.
man, number two was. I kind of actually I remember liking number two better than one when I originally saw them.
Yeah.
I went back and I rewatched it again this most in certain areas in the second one, but it still stands up.
Hmm.
The third one, it's still cringe.
Yeah.
I
Well,
cringe
it's
when I
got
watched
the.
it the first time, and I
It's just
cringe when
like
I
it's just
watched it
like
the
the Dark
third.
Knight trilogy, where it's like the first one's good, the second one's the best, and the third one, eh.
Yeah,
But
basically, yeah.
but it's like if they brought him back, and especially because have him hunt down Morbius, and then they could team up, like the comics.
Yeah.
You could do all kinds of stuff with it. I don't know, but I'm gonna go
Well,
see Craven. Like it's not gonna be great, but I'm gonna go see Craven.
here's the thing with Disney is they're so and Marvel in general. And when I say Marvel, I still mean Disney because
Hmm.
even though Marvel is writing the comics, its parent company is still Disney.
Yeah, Disney tells them what to
So
do at the end of the day,
right, and that's including the physical comics that you pick up at the comic book store.
or
Disney is
don't.
still going to, or don't. Right, Disney is still going to dictate what's being drawn and written because they'll say, "Well, we're independent here." No, you're not. If you work for Disney, you work for Disney. So, um, that being said, I worry about I worry about how characters like Captain America. That would be a wonderful opportunity to create a variant of Captain America called the Black Cat. Because the Black Cat had the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
Felicia Harding had the super soldier serum, and she was the only other one. I think I don't know if her dad ever used it or not. I don't know if the cat used it, but Black Cat definitely was just a female Captain America, and I'm like, man, that's awesome,
Hmm.
you know. And bam, you can pull in Spider Man, you can pull in Captain America, and you don't have to be super politically correct with like seven different Captain Americas. You can have the main guy, Steve Rogers, or Bucky, not Falcon, and you can have um and then you can have Black Cat. And Black Cat's like, yeah, I got the super soldier serum too. By the way, I'm not Captain America. I do my own shit. I do my own thing. freaking rebel. Oh, and hey, Spider Man, I'm gonna make out with him for a little bit too, and I'll run around with Morbius and Blade. I mean, there are so many
Hmm.
cool
You could
outlets.
you could totally do a Black Cat introduction into the Sony universe.
Yeah,
Um, I still think that Disney and they could have used Zendaya. I still think they missed the mark by not making Tom Holland's girlfriend Felicia Hardy. Like
yeah,
that would have been great.
absolutely.
Get like MJ just doesn't exist, or bring her in later because everybody forgot him anyway. That'd be great to have Felicia Hardy. They were together. She's the Black Cat, and then she forgets him.
You know, and a lot of the nerd world's gonna hate me, but didn't. I guess I kind of liked the more recent Spider-Man movie. I'm talking
I didn't.
about
I didn't
the
care for it. No Way
live
Home.
action, but I didn't care. Yeah, I didn't care the direction it went. Where old boy goes, Tom Holland says, have everybody forget me, and forget who I am, whatever. I just, I don't know.
Well, it took three
Like,
movies to
man, you
make
could have
him.
done it.
It took 3 movies to make him Spider Man. It's like finally he
Yeah,
understands that responsibility and power are intertwined.
it's just and that's something he could have figured out in that first movie.
Yeah, and
And I didn't care for the second movie with Mysterio.
it's
Mysterio's a
boring.
cool villain,
It's such a
but
boring movie.
it is. And then the third one, it's just lackluster.
Well,
It's
the
just
best thing about the
you know,
first one is Michael Keaton as the Vulture, and
yes,
the best thing about the last one is the Green Goblin, and that's it.
Return of
Like,
the Green Goblin.
yeah,
Yeah,
but that was a Sony
and
villain.
And Doc Ock,
Yeah,
who's a 20th Century Fox villain.
yeah.
It's just it's just you know
I think he was Sony. I could be wrong. Maybe he wasn't
no.
Sony.
So
Yeah.
Sony was Andrew
Well, you
Garfield.
know what I mean. They were Sam Raimi
But yeah,
villains.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what it is it was different, and um it was kind of cool to see the other Spider Men,
Well, we can get into that though,
and
because yeah.
they reenacted that stupid meme, and that's
See that
kind of
yeah,
that's fun, but it's
it's so
not,
cheap.
you know, I don't
Like
right. It's low hanging fruit. Give
it's
me something better than that.
it's multi. I don't like multiverse stuff at all, and like we can go into that. Like I saw into or across the spider, whichever the first one was, into the Spider Verse.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
I
I
thought
didn't
it.
like it
I
either.
thought it looked okay. Like I thought it was like okay, this looks nice,
It's
but
pretty.
yeah, but it's like okay, it's Miles Morales fighting a bunch of Peter Parker villains, and then I've read the synopsis of the second one, and it seems even worse. And it's like they're battling the Spot, and I'm like, that's another Peter Parker villain.
Yeah, which
And
the spot was actually you don't need all of them to battle the spot.
well,
I mean,
they made him a
the cartoon.
dimensional. Yeah, they made him a dimensional being in this one. Like he can travel dimensions and absorb power or whatever.
Oh my
So I
goodness, the
didn't watch it, but I
cartoon,
read it, and I was like, this sounds like it sucks.
the '90s cartoon version of Spider-Man. That very first season is where you first see the spot,
Yeah, it was a good one.
and that was a good one, and that's all you really need from him. I never really cared or thought about him ever since.
Well, and let's be honest,
you
man.
know,
I can't pretend that Spider-Man 2099 is suddenly good when I read the comics and they weren't good.
they weren't they
Like,
weren't that great.
no, 2099 wasn't a great experiment. And here's the thing: is like in this new movie, there's apparently jokes where they're ragging Ben Riley, the Scarlet Spider, for
Hmm.
being like one of those weird '90s things. But it's like, dude, Spider-Man 29 was like a weird gimmick too. Like,
Yeah, I, I never liked Ben Riley. I still don't like Ben Riley. But the reason I don't like Ben Riley is because I grew up when he was being written, and so
I like
when I saw Ben Riley, it was like,
now I like the Scarlet
eh,
Spider.
oh
Whenever they get through the Clone Saga, they didn't try to say he was the original, and they made him
yeah
the Scarlet Spider, and he wasn't Spider-Man anymore. I thought that was great, but they still can't figure out Miles Morales because even people are mad because even Marvel has to say like they'll be like what's the Spider-Man ally? Like human, it'll be like Human Torch, Spider-Man, and Miles Morales battle a bad guy. They have to still call him Miles Morales. Like Spider Gwen had a title before Miles Morales did. And why'd they give him Peter Parker's dead girlfriend?
I
Like,
don't
what? It's
know.
such a
That's so
weird.
weird.
It's such a weird idea.
Is she even a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Weren't they trying to go trans with Spider
I don't
Gwen
know, and
too?
I don't care. I don't know
Uh,
if she is whatever. Like, I don't. I'm not gonna watch the movie regardless.
yeah, I guess I don't care. But it's just weird that things get switched up. I mean, like, did you really have to take Gwen Stacy? Just let Gwen Stacy die. Have
Yeah, she should be
any other
dead.
7.5. Why do you have to use that one?
Mm-mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just seems so weird to bring her back as because they did Spider Gwen and the Gwen verse and all this kind of stuff, and like to me, multiverse stuff just seems like it cheapens everything. It's like it
It
doesn't
does.
matter, and I guess I don't know. I just keep seeing like I keep seeing memes from the new movie, but you get to have a canon event. And that's the whole thing. Is like Miles won't let his dad die. That's supposed to be a canon event, and
Right.
I hate that kind of stuff. It feels like young adult written for 40-year-old wine mom rules, like book
Yeah.
writing. That's what that. Oh, it's got to be canon. This. Like
It's
no,
it's,
this
it's
big
Twilight, but
yeah,
Spider-Man.
this giant. It's got to be this giant multiversal thing of fate and all this kind of stuff. When just no, and that's what they started with Homecoming in the movies. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, no, I care about Peter Parker. Give me one at a time in separate universes. I don't care of them all being together. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't like Madam Web in the cartoon. And when she
You
started,
didn't like her?
no, when they started messing with, oh, there's different, this idea of different Spider-Man and cosmic force. Like, no, just let him be a guy from like Brooklyn or Queens or wherever he's from. Is it Queens? That gets bitten by a radioactive spider and he has to accept that responsibility. Stop making it a huge cosmic fate thing, you know?
I don't know. I like the Beyonder and Madam Web because then they did the Secret Wars and
Well, I like the sequel. The
six
Secret Wars was
forgot
different
six
though.
forgotten warriors and
Yeah,
all that
that
stuff.
was kind of cool because that was they were picking people to fight. It wasn't like, oh, there's a Spider-Man on every universe.
Right.
And I don't. I didn't like even when DC did it and stuff that kind of. I just don't like multiversal stuff. To me, it just cheapens characters. Like, give me the character.
Yeah. I don't know. I like it when they do it with Superman
Well,
because
like I
I
said,
enjoy Superboy Prime. I enjoy
yeah, and I'm
uh,
trying to. I'm not trying to split
Man of
hairs
Steel.
here. I'm not trying to be like
Steel
a DC
Superman.
fanboy, but DC is different. DC, you're dealing with gods,
Right.
and Marvel has always prided itself on being the everyman.
Yep.
So don't step into God's territory.
Yeah. Stay in your lane.
Well, like that's the thing is like Thanos' greatest universal threat for the Avengers. I mean, he couldn't take Superman. He couldn't take the Justice League at all. Like
No.
he couldn't
No,
take
which
Martian.
is really
He couldn't
funny.
take Martian Manhunter.
No, which was really funny. A while back. I joined. I think I was only in the group for like 2 weeks. I joined a Facebook group,
I'm
and
sorry.
it was comparing. Yeah, it was comparing. Well, okay. So the person who invited me, I'm in a sport. I'm in a couple of sports groups, and this one person's in a sports group, and he said, "Hey, come over to check this out. This is pretty cool." I see you like comic book stuff. I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll take it. I'll check it out." And it's a versus or whatever, and they only use the cinematic characters because they only know the cinematic characters or
Yeah.
what has been recently written. They don't actually know anything beyond that. So they were doing this whole thing where they were doing Submariner versus oh man, Submariner versus Aquaman. That's what it was. And but they were basing it off of strictly the movies, and I was like, well, if you base it strictly off the movies, then Jason Momoa
Yeah, he's got it.
still kicks his ass anyway. And I was like, and if you want to go in the comics, Arthur still wins anyway. I think
Yeah, no,
Aquaman easily defeats the Mariner. Like,
that's a hard one. If you're physical strength, I don't know. Namor may have that one. That depends.
yeah, but if Arthur has his trident, that's a wrap.
Yeah, that's a hard one because I'm not gonna go into that because I'm pretty sure Aquaman has some mystical powers too, doesn't he?
He
Or is
does.
that just Mira? I don't remember.
No, I thought like it was like through his blood or lineage or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
don't. I think Submariner is technically a mutant, but not really. I know
So Mariner can't
they
talk to fish.
I know they hinted at him being like a mutant, but I don't think he actually is.
Could he? So Mariner couldn't talk to fish, could he?
I think he could. I think he could.
No,
All,
'cause I
all
was
I
about to
know is
say,
all I know is that from I just love that one time during the beginnings of House of M where he beats the crap out of Iron Man.
oh, Submariner does. Yeah.
Yeah, he says something about he says something like "I'm a king," and Iron Man says "Not up here, you're not." And like the next scene is him just dragging Iron Man into the ocean, and he's just crushing his mask and everything. And Doctor Strange has to save him.
Uh, Speaking of, that reminds me, I played Injustice, all of them. They're all. That's a fantastic game series.
Yeah.
And anyone who's listening, if you're curious, Injustice is Warner Brothers has the rights to Mortal Kombat in DC, and so they also created a game series called Injustice. There's one and there's part one and part two, and part one is the one I played most of, although I did play some in part two. And it's set up like Mortal Kombat because it's all
Yeah.
kind of owned by the same parent company. It all has the same game engine. So if you figure out, each fighting game, if you know fighting games have different feels to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you catch the feel of Mortal Kombat, then you can play Injustice,
Yeah.
vice versa. Same thing. So combos are set up the same way, everything. So um, one of the things that would annoy me the most when I play an Aquaman is he could do this little move where you hit. Well, I play Xbox. It'd be B for me. It'd be circle if you're on PlayStation, and like some other, and it's a combination of arrows. And he would douse himself in like a water or whatever. You'd like see him like water
Mm-hmm.
pour over him, and he'd become slippery. So if you're playing a character like Solomon Grundy, who does like a lot of grab moves, he plays very much like
Zangief.
Goro, where
Yeah.
or no, well, no, because that's Street Fighter, but more like Goro, where he grabs and he
Yeah.
stomps and he steps. And then what it is other players can't grab you, so
That's cool.
so you literally slip out from under them as
Yeah.
long as you have that little water thing on. And it's annoying because in Injustice, instead of fatalities, um, you would have instances where you do in Mortal Kombat they call it X-rays, but it's just like your power move. It's like your ultimate move, and it doesn't necessarily kill you, but it can. If you're low enough in life, it'll kill you, but it takes away a huge chunk of life if you're anyway, and it keeps you from doing that.
Yeah.
so, so you set him up for this big grand finale, and then he just like puts on a little stupid water shield, and you're like, Aquaman, you son of a. And I knew a guy who played Aquaman all the time, and all he'd do is put on that little water shield,
Was
and
it was it
you can
Shane?
Josh McGuire. Well,
Uh.
that's your last name. Docs that, but sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know him. I didn't say last name, but yeah, feel free to dox that. But yeah, so
Please don't.
it's
Please don't
just
dox our friend.
but yeah, he would do that. No, Shane always played he always played Batman because
Yeah.
Batman plays like Sub Zero. So if you're a Sub Zero fan, he slips and slides and does all that kind of stuff. He plays Batman or Nightwing. I always play as Hawk Girl. Hawk
Oh,
Girl was a
she's cool.
beast, dude. You take her power
Yeah.
mace and you would just do like these huge flying uppercuts and just scoop people in the air and then
Yeah.
combo them in the air and then slam them down. And
Well, I don't. I
Hawk
don't.
Girl
Where
was
I don't know where you're
awesome.
going with
But
this.
anyway, we're what I was talking about. We're doing the Submariner and all that, and I don't know how we got all on the Submariner Aquaman, but that's
Well, I
right.
mean, and Disney ruined the Submariner in the last Wakanda movie,
Oh man,
and
that movie was
like
awful.
and it's
Oh
just like
boy,
the guy who
oof.
played him. It was like, look, man, I didn't even care about the race stuff, like going from Atlantean because that's not a real race to Mayan or whatever. That's fine. It's just like he didn't look like Namor. He wasn't
No,
super tall, and I mean Namor is built like who's the freakish Olympic dude that got caught smoking pot or whatever? Like that was gonna improve his. He won like he broke every world record ever.
swimmer
Yeah,
Michael Phelps.
yeah. Namor was built like Michael Phelps.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was.
he's super tall and kind of lanky looking, and then the guy they got was didn't look like that.
He was lean muscle. He had
Yeah,
lean
because
muscle.
he swims all the time.
Right.
And he gets beaten by like being tossed in the desert, and he gets beaten by not Black Panther, and it's just dude, like Namor was supposed to be like a force to be reckoned with. He commands the oceans, and like how is he beaten in the desert
It's so dumb.
by not Black Panther?
I I hated that movie. I hated. Oh man, I could go on. If we
Yeah.
unbox that.
No, it's just let's just touch on it
Uh,
briefly for them like ruining characters is what I'm saying. Like if you'd have told me they were gonna have in a comic book even we're gonna have Black Panther even if it's actually T'Challa beat Namor in a fight like no man that's not gonna happen. Like
no,
I love Black Panther and he could go toe to toe with like Captain America, some of the best brawlers. None of those dudes could fight Namor. Like Namor has taken on the Fantastic Four by himself.
yep.
Like Namor has taken on Doctor Doom by himself. Like
You'd have to have like a hero on the level of a Thor, or a Ghost Rider, or somebody
yeah,
to be able to take
something,
on
yeah,
Namor.
almost a semi-god level to take
Yeah.
on Namor. Yeah,
Well, here was my biggest gripe since we were talking about ruining characters with that movie with Wakanda Forever was the way that Shiri took the character, the ancestor that she could see. The ancestor she chose to see was Killmonger, and it's like, and it's like, why?
is your cousin an ancestor?
I guess so, right? She's like the spirit of the dead. Well, initially it was supposed to be your ancestors,
Yeah,
and
but your cousin's in the same tree branch as you are, like
yeah.
on the family
So,
tree. That's not an
so how are you
ancestor.
able to? Right, how are you able to see your cousin?
That's a contemporary.
Well,
That would be like you seeing me.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And then at the same time, it's like, why? If you're gonna see someone on your level, why are you picking your cousin? Why don't you just go see your brother? Because you're wanting to emulate your brother. You wanting to be um, the Black Panther. So go
Hmm.
find the Black Panther. Don't
They should
don't
have
go for
brought
Killmonger.
they should
Oh,
have redeemed Killmonger. They should have because Michael B. Jordan killed that role. I didn't like that movie, the first one either, but he did a really good job in that role. They should have either made it so he didn't die, like they preserved him at the end, or
mhm,
something with Thanos, something with that brought him back to life. And his whole
right.
thing is taking the mantle because no one else can. And it's a huge dispute, and his whole thing is he is there to redeem himself in the eyes of Wakanda and of T'Challa,
That would have been
and
cool.
prove himself and be like
It was
T'Challa was right, that you know, and he's trying to seek redemption for his sins.
it's the hero that goes on the pilgrimage that seeks
Yep.
forgiveness.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they could have done everything, especially if they're going to do a war with Namor, which I think that was a dumb idea. But if you're going to do that, then it'd be like he should be the one that's saying we shouldn't go to war. And it's like, well, you're Killmonger. He's like, well, I was Killmonger. Like, I know war. Like, this is not what we should do. And show that
Right.
conflict. Like, he's now a new king. No one really kind of wants him to be king. And then the one thing he could do to prove himself, which is war, you know, he's got that conflict. That would be a
Right.
deep, compelling story.
It'd be good.
But they're not going to do that.
No, no, because it's why make good things? And
Hmm.
here's the thing. Even even as Sherry as Black Panther, if you, that's fine if you're not going to bring Killmonger into it.
Hmm.
If the person that she seeks, if she has to go seek a contemporary or she has to go seek guidance, then she needs to go see her brother or her
Or
dad.
if you wanted to do it really, like really stir the pot in a good way, I think if you're gonna go female queen and first of her kind and really do it, then she should have seen nobody. And it's
Yeah,
that's the realization is
because it was
I'm
always males, right?
this is a
The lineage was
patriarchy,
always males.
and then her having to deal with that and not glorify the strong female woman. I can do whatever I want. It's like I'm
Yeah,
alone. I'm having to
yeah,
and then maybe even turn the mantle over at the end or start from the beginning and just I don't know show doubt and I don't know. There's ways you could do it that's more interesting than than what they did. And no,
that's
don't I
right.
would not have brought in a fight with Namor. I think that was a terrible idea from day one.
And also, I think what she could have done is she was already like a scientist, like a super
Mm-hmm.
advanced, like super smart. She had her own like
Yeah,
Black
like
Panther
Tony Stark.
weapons,
Yeah.
her vibranium. Yeah, she had her own level of that. And instead of just having the same old Black Panther suit, she
Mm-hmm.
should have been able to incorporate some of that stuff and make it unique, like truly
Yeah.
unique. I mean,
Well,
they
and
made it a unique version to her, but not it wasn't as unique enough to me. Like she had those
yeah,
hand blasters in
the first
when
one.
she
Yeah.
fought Thanos, yeah, and that those were cool. Like she could have like had her where her she's not as good of a fighter, so she's not as good of a fighter. She absorbs energy like Bishop. She's basically Bishop. She absorbs energy and puts it out through her hands and like little Black Panther blasters and something I don't know, but do something that's not that, you know?
Yeah. Give me just a second. Um, another theory someone presented was to it would have been cool to have T'Challa's mom take the mantle.
Yeah,
Yep.
the Queen,
And then
and
having
then
to embed that, so you could have the same thing where she could take the stuff and see nobody, and
yeah,
it'd be like I'm having to start from scratch here and really show that and she's a widow and she just lost her son. Do a whole thing with that.
yeah. It's there's so many good opportunities to make good inclusive things. I know Disney wants to go for inclusivity. There are so many cool good ideas to do that, and
Mm-hmm.
they just don't. They take low hanging fruit or they take lazy writing.
Yeah, there's like a million ways you could have done it better. I still think
Yeah,
Killmonger would have been the best way to do it. I
yeah,
think doing a redemption arc for him and doing a mass humbling because there's the meme on the internet. People are like, well, Killmonger was right. Like, no, he wasn't. His name's Killmonger. Like, that's like
right.
there's just, a guy
He
named
he, li-
Killmonger is not ever going to be right.
he literally put scars on his body for every person that he killed.
Yeah, and
But
he made his entire career was destabilizing small nations that were trying to be independent. That's what they said in the movie. It's like, hey, we
yeah,
taught him to do this. Like, this is what he does. He's a
like he's
terrible.
literally not a good guy.
Yeah, he's destroyed small democracies before. Like that's his whole thing. So having him on a redemption arc because of T'Challa's sacrifice or death or whatever however you want to do it would have been a better way to do it. But like we said from the beginning, I don't think they actually care about characters, and that's what's so disheartening. And the harder thing is in the indie world is making characters for people to care about.
Right.
But I mean, Stan Lee did it numerous times, and Steve Ditko did it, Jack Kirby and Bob Kane did it, so it's possible.
Yeah,
And yeah,
it's just it's just I don't know if there's even an audience that even wants that. I don't know. I mean, I know it's hard to create characters that you care about, but is there even an audience available that? And I'm speaking of today's like youth and coming up,
yeah,
because what's being presented to them right now, what they're getting is they're getting a world in which characters don't matter. Here's my political insertion. Here's my
yep,
message. Here's what I really want to talk to you about. Do with the characters. They're just here to tote my message. And and if that's what they're being exposed to now, if someone created something that is really intrinsically sorry, I can't talk
yeah.
right. Intrinsically deep and something that you want to care about, would they even care about it anyway? Because would they even be able to recognize it?
Well, they do, and they do it all the time because manga exists.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta call there for a second. Yeah,
My 3-year-old just screamed. I don't know if it came through the mic or
it
not,
did.
but
It's fine. My child is literally right across the screen from me. He's not sleeping either.
well,
Don't put him on here because I don't want my baby's face on the internet right now like that. He's
um,
adorable, but
I may have to go in and tend to her.
Yep.
So I don't know how long that'll take.
Okay. Well, we can. I think we could probably get the time to wrap it up here.
Okay.
We'll table it for there. But no, like manga has proven that people, especially kids, do want good characters.
Yeah, that's true too. Because manga's on the rise and comic books are on the
Well,
decline.
in
So
pro wrestling, you're a fan of it.
yeah, well, pro wrestling is. That's all that pro
It's
wrestling is.
booming right now. It's bigger than it's ever
It's
been, which is crazy.
it's hitting a new golden age. You know, the golden age was the
Yeah.
'90s, and it's hitting like a new golden age.
Which no one
Um,
thought would happen.
no, and it's because there's competition again. That's
Hmm.
what happened.
Well, that's what has to
And
happen with comics too, and that's what manga's given it.
right, and once you have competition, you have the best. Competition brings out the best of everybody.
Well, that's the thing is
And
there's so many comic pros that are whining all the time, and they're whining about pay and they're whining about everything. Just want it's like they're not hungry, and when they do get hungry, they don't know what to do with it. It's like, dude, when you're hungry, you create, you go out more, you hunt, you get ravenous. You know,
right, I think she went back to sleep. So I
my
think
li-
that was like a
my
bad dream
little
moment.
my little guy's just staring at me. He's like,
So
you know that baby face where it's like,
yeah.
yeah.
So for context to listeners, my 3-year-old was hopping around on my mother-in-law's furniture from couch to ottoman, ottoman to couch, and I told her this afternoon. I said, "Stop! Don't do that. You're gonna fall." You know, 3-year-olds don't listen. So the 3-year-old then goes. I go to grab her. When I go to grab her, she runs from me, which is already a big no-no,
Mm-hmm.
and because she knows better than to do that, and she jumped from the couch to the ottoman to get away from me, and then from the ottoman to my father-in-law's recliner,
This is some
and then
house
jumped out
parkour.
of basically it jumped from out of that. They have a set of French doors, but the French doors don't lock; they just kind of are loosely open.
Yeah.
And so she went to grab it, and her face hit the French door. The French door swung open, and she went cheek first into the hardwood floor. So now she has a giant black and blue bruise on her cheek with like a gash on her forehead, or right above her brow actually, and it's probably about. But so that's why I had to wake up probably was she might be, but she looks like she's back asleep. So you can keep talking if you want to. So
Yeah. Well, no,
um,
but that's the thing is, and it's a tired conversation now, but people have to keep talking it because they're trying to fix it. There is an audience for original characters. It's just first of all, there's not a lot of great original characters in indie comics, to be honest. Um, and there's an audience for it, but it's not what it's not the MCU level. But people don't understand that Marvel Comics doesn't have the MCU level audience either.
no,
Like that never those movies never transferred to comic sales the way they thought they would. And you just have to understand comic readers and comic buyers are not the same people as MCU viewers. And that's okay.
right,
They never have been.
no, and it's kind of the same thing. You mentioned professional wrestling, and kind of the same thing happened in professional wrestling where um, you had Vince McMahon was at his best when the WWF at the time was competing with
WCW.
ECW and WCW.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there was like the three big companies, and they were going back and forth, and that was like the best because because they were all buying up the small territories anyway, and but then WWF bought ECW, and then shortly after they bought ECW, they bought WCW, and it was okay. Or so was okay, but then it became bad, and it became stale. And the best thing that's ever happened in wrestling is the emergence of AEW, which is All Elite Wrestling, which is its leading competitor right now in the States, NJPW, which is New Japan Pro Wrestling, and a plethora of others like Major League Wrestling and the old, uh, boy, what's the old outfit? Billy Corgan owns it now from the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh yeah.
Um, God, I sound like people are listening to this and they're like they're screaming it at me right now,
Yeah,
and they're
right.
like, "You son of a!" How are you going to claim to be a wrestling fan? You don't know who what Billy Corgan runs. Um, look it up real quick, but uh, it's Billy Corgan wrestling. It is the NWA. God,
Yeah.
how did I miss that? Jeez, only the biggest territory company in the history of wrestling. Yeah, so NWA, and all these guys, and Impact Wrestling is another one, and all these groups are making competition. They're making outlets because what it is a lot of these wrestlers who were in WWE got rejected. Their characters got rejected. Their ideas got rejected because the way WWE works is it works on a script basis.
Yeah.
If you're watching a movie or a show, actors work strictly to the script,
Yeah.
and when they work strictly to the script, they have to uh, you get the product that you get. Um, these other companies, are they scripted? Yes, because the final outcome's already predetermined, but it's dependent on their character, and that's what kind of comic books need to do as well. Whereas it's dependent on what you create. So if I go to AEW and I'm unsuccessful, it's because I couldn't put the fans in the seats, not because there were writers
Hmm.
who wrote a script for me, because they left it up to me to have creative control as the artist. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
if my art doesn't translate, then it doesn't translate. And that's why you have wrestlers that constantly, and other companies that's not WWE, constantly reinvent themselves. Jericho is the king of reinventing himself because he does it, and every time he does it, he's over. Like he gets over with the crowd. Over,
Yeah.
for people who don't know wrestling talk, meaning he's popular. And because, and that's kind of what you got to do as an artist in the world where Marvel and DC runs everything, and Image, I guess, too, to an extent. You have to, um, which is what manga is doing, is you have to constantly reinvent yourself into something that always catches in your eye, and you just have to stay fresh. And you're and you're building success off your own merits, off of the strength and the uh, the power of what you're creating and what you're writing. I don't know. That's just kind of my take on it. That's how I tie wrestling into it. I mean, because you mentioned it earlier, and it was a great, analogy. So,
Yeah. No, but that's the whole thing. It's just, I think the industry, comic book industry, and maybe other industries are just filled by people who don't care about the characters. Man, you're breathing really loud into that microphone.
and I was breathing it up.
Yeah. I think they're filled with people who don't care about the characters, or I mean, the industry is it's just it's a leviathan too. Like they don't care about the writers or the artists either. They want you to come in, do your job, get your crappy pay, and leave. And the people who work there know that, so you can't really put your own mark on a character. You can't really do anything except for maybe push certain ideas that get passed. And so everybody's just miserable because nobody's making money and nobody can get a creative outlet. So I don't know. It's just filled with people that they don't care about characters. Um, I think the only way around it, I think the only way to move forward in every medium right now, and what's funny is I was talking to a mutual acquaintance of ours on the other day who's a big, I don't want to drop his name without talking to him first, but he has a fairly successful like TikTok and YouTube, or not YouTube, but whatever channel talking about theater. Um,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
I talked with him briefly
I know who
about
you're talking about. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind.
well, yeah, well, I forget what he goes by. His name, the Sweaty
Do you care if I
Oracle. Is it,
sweaty Oracle?
okay. Well, I talked with him briefly on Facebook about how theater, like every art, has to be decentralized now and has to be punk. It has to go back to people putting on really small programs and either hosting their own site or putting it on YouTube until they can get people to come pay for it. Because the the giant corporations and like Broadway and everything else, I don't really know ins and out like he do. they're just controlling everything, and it's all garbage, and they're screwing everybody over. He's saying guys are having to pay to even volunteer to maybe get to be in a part in a play. That's insane.
Yeah, that's wild. That world, the theater world is cutthroat and it's ruthless.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart, and they don't always put out the best products.
Well,
And
they
a
don't care.
lot
They
of
don't care about the
people,
source material either. That's what
no,
sucks.
and a
Yeah.
lot, no, they don't. And a lot of people suffer. A lot of people who work for the theater business suffer um, low, if any, pay at all, and in just absolute grueling working conditions. They really
Mm-hmm.
do. I mean, I know it sounds, well, actors' working conditions, but it no, it
Now,
really
yeah,
is. It's
theater.
really
You're not just an actor. You're building sets and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
right. You're actually engaged, and they are in working conditions that are deplorable,
Mm-hmm.
and then expected to put on these grand lavish shows that mean absolutely nothing. It's such a bizarre world. It
Mm-hmm.
really is.
And it's such an
Yeah.
elitist world now. It's such a
Yeah.
it's all for rich people, and that's what he was talking about. Is it's pushed out everything, but the whole thing is they had. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but it does connect to all of this, and this is what we're doing with Godfo Universe. Is we're trying to break everything down to the most punk DIY way of doing things and push out as much as possible and out compete and outdo bigger corporations, and we kind of can because we've got so much stuff. But that's what I was talking with him about is that there's just so much stuff that can be done because like that's what the Little Shop of Horrors was. I mean, that guy went on to work for Disney, ironically, but they did that like basically out of nowhere with nothing and and grew it and grew it and grew it, and that was before the internet. And but when they did it, it was heartfelt and it was they cared about the source material and some of it changed, of course, and but it was in a nice way. They cared about it. They wanted to show their love for it.
Yeah, they did. They
Yeah,
didn't. They didn't.
they didn't ridicule it or
Or
disrespect
bastardize
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they did. They didn't. They didn't try to completely deconstruct it and build it back.
yeah.
They didn't do any of that. They
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 well
kept
yeah they
true.
embraced the campiness of it because it was based off
Mm,
like an actual like pseudo horror movie from like the way back in the day, black and white Hollywood, wasn't it?
yeah,
Um, and they just kind of they were brilliant, and of course the music was great. They were talented, which is what you need first. But not to go off too much on a tangent, but it's all connected. And that's what we're trying to talk about, especially with this podcast and what we do. And it's why we do so much art, and that you're a part of it too. It's because all of art needs this.
yep,
If every genre needs people who care about what they're doing, and it's not just for a quick buck, and it's not for nostalgia. It's no, there's still some of that rocket sauce, some of that magic dust left in humanity in general, despite us living in a postmodern sledge world.
yeah,
you know,
right.
it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, I think um, you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned nostalgia. I think that particularly, so many people are obsessed with what was or what could have been
Hmm.
that they're willing to accept mediocre work from people who are trying to reinvent things that are now. Nothing wrong with a little nostalgia. That's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, I love picking up. They just did on next gen consoles. They released a Ninja Turtles game that played like the old
Hmm. And I
Nintendo
love the
version, where
Ninja
it's a
Turtles.
side
Yeah.
scroller. Yeah, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, it's a fun
It's
game,
not
and you
Mutant
just run through
Mayhem.
it.
It's something like that.
Now, Meat Mayhem's the new movie coming
Okay.
out. Um, but this is but it's just a side scroller. It's a 2D side scroller like the other ones
Yeah,
were
like
in, in the
for the NES. Yeah.
yeah, for the NES, and you just rock and roll with it, and you pick your turtle, or you can be Master Splinter or April O'Neil, and you just run in and do your deal, and um and it's fun.
Hmm.
That's nostalgia. That's good nostalgia. Bad nostalgia is the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
The Far From, or is it Never Going Home, whatever it
Uh,
is.
um, I forgot the
Not
name
Far From
of
Home,
it.
but
No, I
it's
forgot
yeah,
the name of it. We both
it's yeah, because it's
No Way
I,
Home. No
No
Way
Way
Home.
Home. Yeah, it's No Way Home is, I think it's bad nostalgia. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
think
cool.
I think
Cool to see those
nostalgia.
guys, but I don't care about those guys.
I think nostalgia should be. what is a reignition. To quote Usher. Is that Usher? No, that's not, what's his name?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not Usher. That poor guy. It's the one that got
R. Kelly.
arrested, R. Kelly.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Usher
yeah,
would punch me in the face for comparing him to R. Kelly.
yeah. Maybe coughing right into the mic. Yeah.
Usher would grind my face against his abs until I had no skin left.
And throws millions of dollars at you, and
Yeah, but and he'd be right because I just confused him with R. Kelly, which I love R. Kelly, but not anymore. But, um, all that to say, nostalgia should be a reignition of the spark that inspired you. Like it's okay to go back to things that inspired you if you need to like pick up some more kindling to get your fire going. What it shouldn't be is just member berries of here they can throw anything here that I remember and it makes me overlook the terribleness of the rest of this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I think it's a the crazy thing about it. What blows my mind is what these large corporations are creating now are a they're creating a world of nostalgia to play off of our older generation,
Mm-hmm.
but the younger generation is not getting the original things that the nostalgia is based off of. So they're just getting recycled and watered down memories that
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of lazy writing in it, and they act like they've been there and seen it, but all they're getting is they're getting washed up, loosened up memory that's not even, that's not even what it originally was, and it's not even what the people who are older that remember the original stuff even remember it as being. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's
No, no, I
it's
got you.
really really weird. Yeah,
It's
it's really weird.
it's vicarious because
Yeah.
you weren't there to experience it when it happened. Now you can you can enjoy things. I mean, I found Bob Dylan and the Beatles and all that kind of everybody does that was born after that discovers it, but you don't know what it was like when those guys first hit. You weren't there for it. I was barely there for Nirvana, and those cultural impacts happened because they were cultural impacts, which was the culture at the time. And of course, the art should be timeless. I mean, I can look at a Monet painting and I can look at Da Vinci's work, but I didn't see the Sistine Chapel when it was before it was the Sistine Chapel when first walked in there and saw its completed work.
Hmm.
Um, and and you would be like, what could have existed before this? You know, that's a those feelings are important, and what we're getting them vicariously through the internet or through nostalgia, like you said, and that goes to the whole idea. I think we did a podcast on simulacra and simulacrum before, but we'll probably do it again. And everything we're moving into a digital world from an analog world, and we're moving to a simulacra out of reality.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I don't know. I just I wonder you know what the work that we're involved in now, especially that you and Josh are doing at Godfair. That's an original piece, but and it's a good original piece, but on the whole, I mean, I'm not talking outside of Godfair. I'm talking about the entire breadth of the world,
Mm-hmm.
universe, whatever. You know, with us being so digitized, with the few exceptions, like I feel like you guys are the exception to the rule. The rule is there is no creativity
Yeah.
except for what is already predetermined as being creative, which goes against itself. I don't know if that makes any sense,
No, no, I
but
got you. The arts have struggled with the digital, and it was supposed to be like the digital was supposed to open up the arts, but it didn't. It commodified it. It didn't really spark creativity the way we thought it would. It just sparked commodification. And there are some guys, especially YouTubers, who are trying to um, start new things, analog things like comic books, but I haven't been real impressed with it because it seems built more off their personality, which is fine. If you got a platform and you want to sell something, go for it, But I don't think they were creatives. I think they were personalities, and I think they're trying creativity, but I don't think they're artists. And that's nothing.
Right.
That's nothing against them. Some people aren't. I'm not a personality like they are. You know what I mean? Some guys can get up there and they can talk and they can entertain through that. But I mean, Instagram kind of ruined photography for a lot of people
Hmm.
because it made everybody a photographer.
Well, it made
Um,
it not an art anymore, almost.
yeah.
I mean, I have a very very uh, a person who's like a very inspirational person in my life to me, um, whether he knows it or not. And I won't drop his name here out of respect for him, but um, he is a journalist, well known, and he's also a photographer. He's a retired journalist. He's actually a chair over at the local university over here, over the mass communications department, and he's also a photographer on the side. He freelances. That's his kind of a side gig, and he submitted really, really, really great pics of nature where he was like sitting for hours. Like he would go into like these swamps and marshes infested with animals and all kinds of like crap that can just
Infested with animals.
leave me like yes, infested with animals. Yeah,
Yeah,
and just
infested with animals. You sound like a Disney like environmentalist villain. Sorry, continue.
I'm the opposite of Captain Planet,
Yeah,
the yellow one
yeah.
or whatever it was. Yeah, uh, but no,
These
but it's just
forests are infested with animals. this should this should be a high rise.
that's great, and it should. No, so but anyway, he just gets in these really complex positions, and he will wait for sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. He will wait for a very long time, and it all just for like one shot. And he uses these like, and he entered into art fields with some of it, and art fields for those who don't know who are listening is the local original regional now. It's not even local; it's regional. It's the Southeast Regional art competition funded by Darla Moore. It's the biggest payout of anywhere I think in the country. Maybe it's just the region, but it could be the country. But for whoever wins, it's a huge, huge deal to get into it if you're a visual artist, and and if you win, that's even a bigger deal because you get your free expose, which it costs a lot of money to do one, and so you get a free one plus you get like 25,000 runner up, I think 50,000 grand prize winner. So it's a big deal.
Hmm.
And so he put his photo art in there, and they're like, yeah, it's not. He didn't ever get any votes, and he's like, yeah, I didn't get votes. I tried, but he's like, I didn't get votes because it's not considered art. Because it's not. Photography used to be considered an art form because it's hard to get the lighting right and the shading right. But now with everything digitized, you can just filter everything and create the lighting you want even if it's not there, and create the edits you want even if it's not there. And then I don't know. It kind of takes away from it, and it sucks because this guy has created some of the most phenomenal pictures I've ever seen in my life, and that's not even hyperbole. It's really true, and gets no credit for it, or maybe gets a page out of Southern Living for it or something like that, and that's it. That's as far as it goes, and it's really really sad to see.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with him. Our mutual friend Colin. When I saw his stuff on Instagram, I was like, man, he's actually a photographer. Like that's it. It changed my entire view on photography when I saw his stuff because I didn't think people could still even do that anymore. It's basically on a camera, phone like a phone on a camera. Um, it's basically something posted on Instagram, and like I saw it, I was like, oh, this is an art form, and still is. Like this is something that I don't know. It broke a cynicism I didn't even know I had when I saw it, and that's why I immediately had to work with him stuff. And I think that's what the world needs. I think it needs more, and they can be small, like little things like that. That of course they'll grow into bigger things, but you have to do the little things first. Um, and you have to not necessarily wish for a giant audience. You just need to wish for an audience that's yours. And I,
You know what I've become a fan of lately, an art form that's got some real originality to it, and it does play a little bit of nostalgia, but it's so far back that maybe I mean, my grandparents are long gone, but it's only something that they would have remembered, and it is creating full stories only on the audio medium.
yeah,
I follow a horror
I
series.
thought you were gonna say polio.
I follow a series about polio.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Uh, no, that's really funny. That kind of that was really good. Um, uh, but no, it's a series. It's there are a few series on Audible and I'm going to bring up one of
Yeah,
them.
like podcasts and stuff too.
Well, they are in podcast form, but they're whole. Um, there it is, the Gods of Appalachia,
Mm.
um, and I mean they have a Facebook group and everything, but it is Old Gods of Appalachia to give people the correct title. And Old Gods of Appalachia is a horror series, and it's a guy that narrates and he creates characters, he creates a scene, and then you actually have voice actors come in to voice these characters. And and it's a fantastic horror series. I mean, it really is. It's just a series of short stories. I mean, they all kind of line up and they all belong in the same world together. Not too dissimilar from Godfo, where it's this whole universe and then there's just
Mm-hmm.
different periods of time, and but this takes place in the Appalachian Mountains with different characters and different stories, but they all are a part of the bigger story. And that is the existence of and manipulations and powers of the old gods in the Appalachian
Yeah.
Mountains, the old hillbilly gods, and that well, they're real, and that's because the Appalachian Mountains is the oldest mountain range on Earth. So I don't know if anybody knew that, but that's a little tidbit there. That's why it's so flattened out. That's why it's not as big and rocky because it's eroded so much throughout the thousands of years. But it's dated as being the oldest mountain range on the planet. So you can do a lot of really cool horror things out of that. And the story format is purely audio.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys will then go on tour. These voice actors and the narrator and all that, they're all from North Carolina. They'll go on to or Virginia, North Carolina. They're all from the area. They'll go on tour and you can sit there and listen to them do readings, and it's really cool because you get to see the face to the voice, and that's what I love audio. um, that's why I'm doing with you guys. I'm doing audio with you
Yeah.
guys. I love the audio aspect. Lending a voice to tell a story. I'm not much of a singer, although I've been trained to sing. I'm not much of a singer anymore through years of smoking and alcohol abuse and whatever have you, whatever the military throws at you. I've been there, done that, screaming, yelling, and I just don't have a voice for it anymore. But I do have uh, an ability to talk, and an
Mm-hmm.
ability to keep rambling on like I'm doing right now. And there's another one that John Hamm is a part of, a murder mystery that I just started not too long ago. I forget the name of it offhand. I'm not going to look it up because it'll take up too much time. But and that's a murder mystery where John Hamm, an actor who you see on TV, now takes to an audio medium, and there's a couple of other pretty big name actors and actresses attached to it. And every week, a new episode drops. You're getting this entire full length story, and I that is something that is made better digitally. That, with the exception of AI, I don't see could be corrupted. But I
Yeah.
mean, I see now with AI coming in, that's a whole other can of worms, and I think that could ruin that medium. But for now, it's a truly unique thing because I can cut my grass. It takes me an hour to cut my grass. It's an episode. If I go on these 7 8 mile walks to try to get back in shape, and when I do these really long runs and walks, because some of it's running too, That's 2.5 hours. I do 7 miles, and I mean, I know it sounds slow, but guys, I'm also 300 pounds, so give me a break. Uh, give me a break, or I'm going to break your couch when I sit on it. But in those 2 hours to 2.5 hours, I'm listening, to two full episodes, and
No, but yeah, that
it's
idea
really
of
cool.
the radio talkie, yeah, like that kind of
Yeah,
type of show, like
and that takes you back to the old days that harken
yeah,
back to the
and
fireside chats and all that other kind of
exactly, yeah,
stuff.
yeah, like, that's what that's what a great tool the internet has done, um, and can do, and I think that's where a lot of the future is because there's a reason people do OnlyFans whenever pornography is free. There's a reason people pay for Twitch. There's a reason YouTube took off the way it did. Is because it has some semblance of human interaction.
Hmm.
Um, and the cynical side is to say that's a digital fake, but the other side is it's just showing that that's what humans care about most
Hmm.
is human interaction, and that's a good thing. Like that's if I had to use internet terminology, I guess that's a white pill of sorts,
Yeah.
to think about and
Yeah.
know. And that's what I would say to creatives. Like, don't just go for, especially indie comics. Don't just sell cheesecake. Don't just sell nostalgia. Sell human people. Sell human interaction.
Yeah.
Make your characters people and be invested in your fans and actually
Right.
care. And I know we can go off on a whole tangent on parasocial relationships, but you know what? A parasocial idea of interacting with someone you see digitally speaks to the human condition of wanting relationship. It's much better than talking to an AI, which is the next step. That's yes, and that's the next horror.
Which I've seen before, and
It's trash.
it's
I'm
trash.
not
Like
impressed by it.
I feel like my Siri or my Alexa answers this exact same amount of questions, and
It's
they do the exact same thing.
all it is a really fast search engine aggregate. Like
Yeah.
and part of it is because that's what its creators made it. They won't let it be anything better than that. And the other part is that the limitations of the technology. But yeah, it's just like it's just an aggregate of information. It's
Which
not
is
yeah, it's not thinking
which is
or
which is so
creative.
funny because there was the one guy who got his who used AI. I don't know if it's Chat GPT or not, but he used AI to convince himself that he needed a divorce.
Oh yeah,
Uh, it, and then right now, currently in the headlines here in the U.S., is two lawyers who used Chat GPT to formulate a legal argument and then got busted for it,
yeah,
and now they're being countersued
yeah. Which, but
and actually facing jail time.
it's just a search engine. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean I don't know the full stories of those stories, so I'm not going to say anything. But I don't see what could be wrong with a lawyer using it for defense, like to get information on past crime. Like, hey, can you explain somebody versus something to me? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And like I said, it's just an aggregate of information. Um, but I'm going to end it there just because I don't want to keep going on a tangent, and I need to probably go help put little man down. But
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, I think this has been a cool talk, man. We'll pick it up again. I'd like to go further into because on the Godfrey Universe podcast, we always talk about the Godfrey Universe, but we always keep finding ourselves talking about the nature of art in general because it's just that's what drives us in the
Hmm.
importance of it. And it's like no matter who we talk to, we really get into it because it's really important to everybody. It's just not always articulated.
Right. And I think that if we, even though um, this is a Godful Universe podcast, I think uh, expanding on what you're saying, um, we talk about so many different art forms on so many different mediums. I mean, already alone, we've addressed video games, wrestling,
Comic books,
all
yeah,
comic books, all which, when you're talking about the video games and wrestling, all of those deserve their own shows within themselves. And even though it's not in the Godfall universe,
mm-hmm,
it is still in the arena of conversation that's being held that is discussing art and art form. And and then I tell people, if anyone thinks that video games and or especially wrestling is not an art form, then they need to take a hard check back and
Yeah,
look at it
if well,
again.
they've never done it. I'm making a video
Yep.
game, and like I done some physical activity in my life. I can't imagine doing wrestling on that level.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely an art form.
yep.
But yeah, man. And for everybody, the book's coming very soon. I shouldn't say I've been saying that a lot because I haven't, especially compared to any other indie creators. I haven't been saying that a lot. Josh literally quit his job to work on it full time, and it's almost done. We have a novel that's coming, a full 90,000 word novel that I've written. We got all kinds of peripheral media that's really dope coming out with it, including stuff with Hans here. That's going to be lore videos. We got another one coming out very soon. We've got Godfo Gaming that just launched. I'll put a link in that in the thing. Right now it's us reviewing and building Magic decks, but we'll be expanding out to video games. Hans will be a part of that as well. And in-world podcasts ranging from sci-fi to horror to mystery, that kind of stuff. And short films. We talked about our cinematographer tonight. I'm going to be talking with him later this week about maybe even branching out, like I said, to maybe some pseudo biographical stuff with another friend we mentioned earlier. I'm hoping that will work out. That'd be kind of cool. I'll tell you more about that after this, Hans. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, stay with us, guys, and sign up for the mailing list, and we'll catch you later.